Revelation 1540. From the 26th of July 1940. Exceeding the limits of his power, adversary. Innumerable entities came out of the power of him who strives towards God. The power, however, is from God, because he is also receiver of divine power. He claimed the right for himself to create according to his will. Because he was endowed by God with all gifts, therefore he was created by God himself as a perfect being. And all these gifts, which were proper to a perfect being, he used for apostasy from God. He used all his abilities in a way which was contrary to the will of God. Although the will of God would be sufficient to destroy everything created by this power, this is not in his will. What is from him shall remain until all eternity and become again what it originally was. Power working in the divine will. The adversary of God is granted a period of time for his work in which he can unfold all power, and he uses this period in the most extensive way. He seeks to destroy everything that is divine, that already begins to walk on the path to light. He exerts his influence wherever he finds only the slightest appeal. He works with cunning and treachery to get these beings, who want to escape from him, under his power again. He does not shy away from any stroke of violence, if it only leads to the goal of turning away from the eternal divinity what has emerged from him. For he is not afraid to openly take a stand against God by striving to take everything away from his beings. The belief in a God, in a power, which controls everything and to which everything is subordinate, what is? He thus consciously works against God. And thus fights with a means which was not granted to him by God. Because the beings should know about the eternal divinity and decide out of their own will for or against this. But if the knowledge about the eternal divinity is withheld from them, they have no other way of decision than the way to him, the opponent of God. And this is what the adversary strives for. Thus he fights with a means that is completely opposed to the will of God, so that God's justice must hinder the adversary in the execution of his intention. For the adversary now exceeds the limits of his power, he illegally interferes with divine laws and arrogates to himself a right to which he is never entitled. In his arrogance he believes to be able to displace God and to become master over all creations. And God leaves him great freedom. He does not touch the free will of this opponent, although it would be easy for him to destroy him. But he prevents that the beings are completely without knowledge about the highest God being, because this would lead to complete apostasy from God. Therefore the beings must come again to the knowledge of an all-dominating power. They must recognize the powerlessness of him who wants to be their Lord. They must therefore be put again before the choice to decide for the one or the other power. They must know about both powers to be able to decide. But the knowledge about the greatest power must not be taken away from them, as it is the will of the adversary now, to be able to carry off the final victory. And so the adversary's arrogance will earn him a mighty counterattack. A counteraction will be undertaken by God which will prevent him enormously from his intention. Countless beings will recognize the eternal divinity and want to strive towards it, and they will also receive the power to free themselves from a force that wanted to achieve the final apostasy from God. The adversary himself will be bound. His power will be taken from him, that is limited, so that he can no longer work to the same extent as before, since he misused the power flowing to him and acquired a power that was not granted to him before God. The fact that he openly presumes to fight against God himself is the reason for God's intervention, which now becomes visible to all the world and who wants to avert the dreadful danger of a complete apostasy from God from the beings that have emerged from him and his power. Amen.